you could win a fabulous prize. This week, win a 48-inch terry robe, 2 bath towels, and 6 cool cans from Waterworld. This prize, valued at $120, is the perfect complement to a Coleman Spa. A Coleman Spa offers relaxation the whole family can enjoy, and you'll enjoy your Wheel Deal gift package from Waterworld. To win, watch Wheel of Fortune weeknights at 6:30. When you see the Wheel Deal on your screen, be the 13th caller with the right answer. Watch Wheel of Fortune on TV 13 and win.
Let's check with John Bachman to see what's coming up tonight at 6 o'clock.
Kim, we're going to have a story from southern Iowa. More than 80 head of cattle lying dead on a farm in X-Line. Tom Hauser was there, and he's going to tell us all about it. Also, more details on that fire at North High School. We'll have these stories, the rest of the day's news, in 1/2 hour.
Okay, thanks, John. Finally tonight, a work crew recently got quite a surprise while remodeling the old Vinoy Hotel in St. Petersburg, Florida.
They found nearly 1,400 silver dishes and other items dating back to the 1920s. Demolition workers discovered the treasure in a safe after knocking down a wall. Now, it turns out the find was worth more than $21,000.
Boy, oh boy.
That's something.
That is quite a find. If you like cops and robbers movies, tomorrow's entertainment report is for you. We hope you'll join us for that.
Time now for NBC Nightly News, and Tom Brokaw is on vacation. We'll see you tomorrow.
Panama's Manuel Noriega found guilty in Miami. We'll show how Japanese and other foreign-owned companies don't pay U.S. taxes. And the government speeds up approval for certain drugs.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Tonight, sitting in for Tom is Katherine Couric.
Good evening. More than 2 years after he was brought to the United States in chains and 7 months after he went on trial on federal racketeering charges, Panama's former dictator Manuel Noriega today was found guilty in Miami. NBC's Noah Nelson reports on the reaction inside and out of the courtroom.
Noriega was found guilty of the 2 major charges as well as 6 lesser ones. He was acquitted on 2 minor counts. Noriega showed no emotion as the verdict was read. He could face 120 years in prison. At the Justice Department, there was a sense of satisfaction.
The verdict, I think, that was handed down today in Miami demonstrates that no one, regardless of his position, is above the law.
Noriega's attorney was bitter.
Today, the people of the United States, via this jury, have condoned that action and have sent a message to the rest of the world leaders that you, too, may someday be in our courthouse for alleged crimes you committed in your own country.
It was the invasion of Panama in 1989 by 23,000 U.S. troops that ended his dictatorship. The assault cost the lives of 23 American soldiers and hundreds of Panamanians. Noriega was arrested and brought to the United States to stand trial in Miami on a 1988 indictment. Prosecutors charged that Noriega was on the payroll of the Medellin drug cartel, collecting millions in protection and laundering drug money. Noriega's lawyers deny those charges, saying he was a prisoner of war.
As a prisoner of war, he cannot and should not be tried for any crime in the United States, but should be repatriated back to his own country.
A parade of 60 government witnesses, many of them convicted drug dealers like Carlos Later, testified that Noriega allowed the cartel to ship drugs to the U.S. through Panama and eliminate those who got in the way. But the defense brought in federal drug agents who admitted that Noriega had at times assisted them in drug enforcement efforts. Noriega did not take the stand in his own defense. During final arguments, Noriega's attorney said the prosecution's case, in his words, stunk like a dead fish, built on the testimony of scum who had made deals with the government. Prosecutors called Noriega a greedy, crooked cop who sold out his country and collected more than $24 million in bribes. The government may have spent $10 million to convict Noriega, and it's not finished. He still faces drug smuggling charges in Tampa, and the government of Panama would like to try him for murder. Noah Nelson, NBC News, Miami.
And drug dealing allegations here at home tonight on Capitol Hill. A federal grand jury has indicted a former employee of the House Post Office for selling crack cocaine and other drugs to fellow workers. NBC's Andrea Mitchell is at the Capitol tonight. Andrea?
Katie, the indictment only adds to a House in turmoil. Democrats are trying to clean up congressional perks, but Republicans won't let go of a hot campaign issue. Reeling from public outrage over perks and scandals, Democrats move to hire professional auditors and administrators to run the House.
And it will help this institution avoid the embarrassing, degrading, and time-consuming episodes that have taken up so much of this House's valuable time.
but Republicans said it would only add another layer of patronage.
The Democrats are going to create the official House officer of the scapegoat, so that when there's a problem that comes up in the future, you can blame somebody.
Democrats have already raised prices at the barber shop and the gym, closed the House bank, stopped selling discounted luxury items at congressional stores, stopped free prescriptions and medical service. But nothing has appeased an angry public threatening to turn out incumbents in the fall. In desperation, Democrats are trying to turn people's attention to White House perks.
When you look at the kinds of perks in the White House versus the House of Representatives, it's like comparing a well-fed hog to a little piglet.
At a House hearing today, Democrats grilled White House officials about excesses such as an official who took a White House car at a cost of $300 to go 1 block for lunch.
I don't know who the individual was that traveled across the street in the limousine to go to lunch. So I'd say, what do you mean spend $300 to go to lunch?
Trying to change the subject, a Republican jumped in to accuse the subcommittee chairman of wasting $10,000 on a trip to Alaska.
And I'd like to know what in the world you can do for 16 days in Alaska besides fish and count polar bears.
It's going to get worse. Today's post office indictment was only against a former clerk. Congressional sources expect members of Congress to be indicted as a result of the federal investigation into the House bank. Katie?
Thank you, Andrea. And John Cochran, the White House is facing its share of problems as well. While the Noriega verdict is being viewed as a badly needed victory, there's still a lot of disarray there.
That's right. And Katie, they were scared stiff here at the White House that Noriega would get off.
Well, I think it's a major victory against the drug lords.
If Noriega had gone free, Bush's decision to invade Panama could have seriously hurt his re-election bid. Already, Bush's other military victory against Saddam Hussein is being questioned. Today, Bush was angry at critics who say he quit too soon.
The UN resolutions never called for the elimination of Saddam Hussein. It never called for taking the battle into downtown Baghdad.
No matter what the issue, Bush seems on the defensive. Today, he wanted credit for making it easier for AIDS patients to get new drugs. But the questions were about golfing trips Dan Quayle took on government aircraft. Quayle says he broke no laws, but refuses to discuss the cost.
This does give me a golden opportunity to talk about the real problem, and that is the Democratic Congress, their scandal.
Bush has tried to direct all voter anger at Congress, but it hasn't worked. Sources tell NBC News he was upset because his speech last week calling for reforms in Congress laid an egg. Instead, stories about White House perks are getting big play. And campaign aides are worried about Chief of Staff Sam Skinner's use of FAA aircraft while he was Transportation Secretary. Failure to follow up on policy decisions has also left Bush looking foolish. In February, he announced with great fanfare a health reform package. But 2 months later, the White House has still not sent any health legislation to Congress. The president's son and political confidant, George W., has urged top aides like Skinner to get their act together. And the president, knowing he faces a tough campaign, today refused to rule out the possibility that he will use negative ads this fall as he did 4 years ago. Katie?
Thanks, John. Meanwhile, Paul Tsongas will not re-enter the race for president. Tsongas said today he rejects the role of spoiler.
Grandma's got a date. What's a date?
Closeness. You might hesitate if you wore a diaper. So Johnson & Johnson created Serenity Guards. Bladder control protection so advanced, it holds as much as something 5 times its size and stays dry, locking liquid in. And now there's a new Serenity Guard, Super Plus, with even more super absorbance. So if you've been looking for extra protection, give yourself hugs for discovering new Serenity Super Plus.
An important message for patients taking Cardizem SR.
I need a refill on my Cardizem SR.
You may want to see your doctor before your next refill, because there's a new Cardizem available, Cardizem CD.
What's the difference?
Cardizem CD should save you money, and it contains the same medication as Cardizem SR.
Can you give me Cardizem CD?
Only your doctor can change your prescription. Ask your doctor if new Cardizem CD is right for you.
Cardizem CD. Thanks. I'll ask my doctor.
The Federal Reserve acted again today to give a boost to the economy. It signaled a cut in interest rates by adding money to the nation's banking system. A sagging economy is topic A in Britain as well, where today is election day. Prime Minister John Major's Conservative Party is pitted against Neil Kinnock and the Labour Party. As NBC's Keith Miller reports, it is nip and tuck.
The polls are closed. A BBC exit poll is suggesting a dramatic outcome to the general election.
10 o'clock and Britain is locked in a tight finish to the national election. Projections by television networks suggest no party will emerge with enough seats to control Parliament, but the race is still too close to call. Prime Minister John Major voted early this morning, confident he would extend Conservative rule another 5 years.
Right, just do it left to right. Here we go.
For Neil Kinnock, the Labour Party leader, this is his third attempt to lead the Socialists to power. A record number of registered voters forced officials to open polling stations in garages, a dentist office, and a fish and chip shop.
That's stupid, that is. People have got to eat, haven't they? Yeah, you can go anywhere and vote, really, I suppose, can't you?
And they can go just about anywhere to watch the results. The BBC provided the largest broadcast operation in its history.
If the swing, for example, is 1 point...
The swingometer, so popular when it was introduced 22 years ago, has been brought back, although now it operates by computer.
And turn these blue Conservative MPs red.
In many places, ballots will be counted by hand, so the final results may not be known until Friday. A hung parliament is the last thing British voters wanted. If history is any guide, when no party gains a majority in Parliament, another election is called within the year. Keith Miller, NBC News, London.
In this country, the tax filing deadline comes in just 6 days. As you arrange to pay your taxes, Congress is looking into others that have no such plans. NBC's chief economics correspondent is Irving R. Levine. Irving?
Katie, Americans agonizing over their tax returns may well be outraged to learn that many foreign companies making big money in the U.S. are paying no taxes. That's the finding today of a congressional study.
More than 70% of the 46,000 foreign firms operating in the United States do not pay taxes.
This is outright tax evasion, and we're not going to stand it anymore.
Foreign firms with subsidiaries in the U.S. get away with paying little or no taxes through a scheme known as transfer pricing. Here's how it works. Say it costs a Japanese manufacturer $20 to build a radio. It ships the radio to the U.S. and bills its U.S. subsidiary $95. The Japanese U.S. subsidiary sells the radio to an American consumer for $100. The Japanese U.S. subsidiary reports a profit to the IRS of only $5 and pays taxes only on that amount, whereas the Japanese manufacturer's actual hidden profit was $80.
The Internal Revenue Service regards this matter as a very serious one and that we are giving it top priority.
But big Japanese companies often outgun the IRS in tax disputes by hiring former top IRS officials to defend them. Former IRS Commissioner Donald Alexander, who represents foreign companies, defends the practice.
I believe that a former IRS official who's been separated from IRS for at least 2 years and has no knowledge whatever of the particular case on which he or she is asked to work can represent a foreign firm legitimately.
The U.S. Treasury is losing staggering amounts, $30 billion a year in uncollected taxes from foreign companies, Katie.
Thanks a lot, Irving. Wall Street welcomed today's drop in interest rates. The Dow was up sharply in very heavy trading.
Hey, check it out. Check it out. It's starting to snow.
Besides a powerful V6 engine and a gripping new suspension, the Isuzu Trooper has been thoughtfully redesigned.
Let me see that hand.
To include a tiny little knob.
We're four-wheeling now, buddy.
To make everything right in the world again.
This plant is in trouble. Maybe so are you. Because what will you do? And how will you do it? With one who guides you every step of the way. Ortho. It's our nature to help.
How am I supposed to fall asleep with this pain? I could take one of those nighttime pain relievers with a sleep ingredient, but all I really need is Advil. Advil is so effective, it relieves the pain, so I can get to sleep.
Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
Somebody put these Harvest Crisps in the wrong box.
Delicious.
Right, so what's a delicious cracker like that doing in a box that says low fat, no cholesterol?
Beats me.
I mean, if Harvest Crisps are so good for you, how come I can't stop eating them?
I don't know, hon.
I love them.
Tonight's Daily Difference, crime and punishment. Nintendo has come to the courtroom, but is it fair to the accused? NBC's George Lewis.
Jim Mitchell, who made his living in the pornographic film business, on trial in California last year for killing his brother Artie. In presenting its case against Mitchell, the prosecution used state-of-the-art technology. A computerized simulation of the shooting based on the analysis of experts who studied the evidence.
I think the video recreation, which basically shows a 20, 30-second segment of what we contend happened, made it easier for a trier of fact to see what our version or theory of the case was, which would not have been as clear, in my opinion, had that not happened with the video.
Now, everything you see here is based on physical evidence.
Ballistics expert Alexander Jason prepared the computer simulation.
I think it's fair because I know what went into this. This is not my opinion of what happened. This isn't just my view. This is all based on physical evidence.
Mitchell was convicted of premeditated manslaughter, but his lawyers are appealing the verdict.
The ballistics and the trace evidence did not justify the conclusions depicted in that computerized animated video. So it was totally unfair and misleading.
Computer simulations have come into frequent use in civil lawsuits when lawyers want to recreate accidents. McDonnell Douglas Aircraft used this simulation to prove that design defects were not a factor in the crash of a Northwest Airlines jet in Detroit, that it was a case of pilot error. This simulated ride on a roller coaster helped a Texas teenager win a $2.5 million judgment against the Astro World amusement park in Houston. His lawyers successfully argued that the boy, who suffered a stroke, would have been all right if the seat he was riding in had been better designed. Forensic Technologies International is one of the leading companies in the field of computer recreations used in courtrooms.
I'd say the strongest selling point is that the audience that you have in the courtroom is a TV audience. It's a world where people are used to getting their information visually.
That's precisely the problem, say critics of this technique.
You want trustworthy evidence. You don't want people to be overpowered by all sorts of theatrical and technological glitz, as they will with this stuff.
While computer simulations have gained acceptance in civil cases, their use in criminal trials has met with some resistance from lawyers and judges. This week, at the trial of 4 Los Angeles police officers accused of beating motorist Rodney King, the judge refused to let the jury see a computerized depiction of the incident.
It's supposition and estimates and not reliable to the point where it is admissible evidence, and its prejudicial effect and potential for confusing the jury is great and has a high probability of doing just that.
The advocates of computer simulation say the legal community raised the same kinds of objections in the early part of this century when photographs were first used as evidence. Now a new technology vies for credibility in the courtroom. George Lewis, NBC News, Los Angeles.
More news and John Chancellor's commentary when we come back.
It's not that we're out to burst any balloons here. But the 1992 Buick Skylark comes with something as standard equipment that's optional on practically every import in Skylark's class. Anti-lock brakes. When you add up the cost of the car, that could save you almost $1,000. That could, of course, also help save you your life.
The country mouse and the city mouse. There are opportunities close at hand, and Merrill Lynch mutual funds to help you grasp them. But there are advantages in venturing farther afield. And to help you manage the risk and explore the world's possibilities, Merrill Lynch offers a wide choice of global mutual funds. The moral is, to expand your rewards, expand your horizons.
Fleischmann's Margarine asks, what is good?
Oh, that's good. Real good. And that's very good. Fleischmann's, of course, that's good. And will you look at that? Oh, there you go. That's better than good. Oh, boy.
Fleischmann's Margarine. Have you been good to yourself today?
That's good.
Fleischmann's. Be good to yourself.
I try to ignore my sensitive teeth, but they hurt.
Don't ignore your sensitive teeth. Sensodyne helps stop the pain that can make you stop brushing. Could lead even to tooth loss.
Thanks, Sensodyne.
Sensodyne helps stop the pain and the domino effect.
Dear Thompsons, I swear by Thompson's water seal, but recently when it ran out, my son finished with another brand. Then it rained. What a difference. Thompson's beat it up, the other brand nothing. Thanks for a product you can believe in. Marvin Snoddy, Locust Grove, Virginia.
Here's a quick look now at some of today's other news around the world. In Armenia, fire and exploding ammunition leveled an arms depot and forced the evacuation of nearby areas. It's still burning. Russia offered to send in firefighters to help. Yasser Arafat left a Libyan hospital today, less than 2 days after a brush with death in a desert plane crash. And in this country, Ford announced that Chairman Harold Poling made over $1 million in 1991, even though Ford lost almost $2.5 billion last year. And at Chrysler, Chairman Lee Iacocca's salary was almost $3 million, while his company lost $795 million. Economic hardship on a grand scale is the subject of John Chancellor's commentary tonight. John?
Katie? Talk about a wild week on the stock markets. The Dow Jones Industrials dropped 94 points in 2 days before rebounding yesterday. Prices plummeted yesterday in Paris, Amsterdam, Milan, and Brussels, in Singapore, Taipei, Seoul, and New Zealand. The epicenter of this stock market earthquake is Tokyo. The Japanese economy has hit a wall, and that means trouble for everybody. Japan is pulling its money out of the rest of the world and bringing it home. The Japanese used to invest $100 billion overseas every year. That's $100,000 million a year, buying Rockefeller Center and other trophy properties. That's been reversed. Foreigners are now investing in Japanese properties at the rate of 30 or 40 billion a year. Want a loan? Harder to get these days. Around 15% of all commercial loans all across the United States are made by banks owned in Japan. Those banks now have less money, and because of our recession, American banks will have trouble replacing the Japanese banks. Borrowers, beware. Things, in fact, are bad all over. The German economy is going through a bad patch, and the American economy hasn't recovered from this long recession. Anemic economies in Japan and Germany will slow the recovery in the United States. George Bush, beware. Slow growth could be bad news for him next November. Once upon a time, when the United States had an itch in its nose, the rest of the world sneezed. Not anymore. Today, when Japan gets a cold, the rest of the world gets pneumonia. Katie?
Thank you, John. With Arthur Ashe's revelation that he has AIDS fresh in mind, the government today took steps to get new medication on the market more quickly. Not just for AIDS, but all life-threatening diseases. NBC's Robert Hager reports.
The new rules for drugs published today would shortcut procedures for final approval of new drugs urgently needed for diseases such as AIDS, cancer, and cystic fibrosis, and broaden the availability of AIDS drugs even before they've been approved, when they're still experimental.
It's very important that we try to move these things out as fast as we can. That's the humane thing to do. That's the caring thing to do.
The new procedures have already been tried in a few cases. The AIDS drug DDI was approved last October, way before completion of its first trials on human subjects. Food and Drug Commissioner Dr. David Kessler.
What AIDS has taught us is that people are willing to take certain risks. We cannot be the bottleneck, especially when it comes to serious and life-threatening diseases.
The new rules could be used soon for early approval of another AIDS drug, DDC, and could possibly be applied to the promising new breast cancer drug, Taxol, extracted from the bark of yew trees, or for work on a synthetic version of Taxol. But beyond these drugs, there's a problem. Not much else believed to be even close to approval for AIDS. And as for AIDS drugs which are still experimental, while the intent of today's rule is to make them readily available too, it's really a question of supply, whether manufacturers would make enough to have extra available. In the underground world of AIDS buyers clubs, where prices for unapproved AIDS drugs are posted for desperate patients, today's new rules were greeted with pessimism.
The fact is, though, that there are very few drugs in the pipeline. And if you don't put drugs in the pipeline, it doesn't matter how fast they come out.
And so far, there's nothing, no drug, which seems able to cure AIDS. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
When nightly news continues, the West Coast salmon industry braces for the worst.
Outstanding service. One reason we're the world's largest cruise line. Royal Caribbean, the grand resorts of the seven seas.
Royal Caribbean.
This plant didn't have to die. Just a few cents worth of miracid could have saved it. When azaleas and other evergreens turn sickly yellow, they need more than just fertilizer. They need miracid. You see, ordinary fertilizers just feed, but miracid feeds, ironizes, acidifies, helps restore vigor and beauty. And with miracid in your Miracle Grow feeder, you can keep azalea and other evergreens beautiful year-round. It's so easy. Just drop in and spray on. So fast, you'll treat all your plants in minutes.
I was tossing and turning.
In medical tests, people fell asleep faster and slept better with Unisom than without.
Now I'm sleeping and sleeping.
Unisom for faster, better sleep.
Nighttime, one of the worst times for pain. Minor arthritis pain, muscle aches, pain that seems to go on. That's why you need Ultra Strength Bengay, the strongest Bengay ever. You can say goodnight to your pain with Ultra Strength Bengay.
To fight the effects of corrosion, the body of the Buick Regal has been built with two-side galvanized steel that goes beyond what most car makers use. Beyond Honda, beyond Toyota. In fact, all Buicks are warranted against outer body rust-through for 6 years or 100,000 miles. And that's a promise you don't have to take with a grain of salt.
On Assignment Earth tonight, the endangered salmon. The fishing season from Mexico to Canada may be over before it begins. Salmon are so scarce, the government tomorrow is expected to announce severe restrictions. Here's NBC's Diana Couric.
Among the salmon fishermen, there's a consensus.
There's no shortage of fish. It's politics.
It's crooked politics, that's what it is exactly. I hope you put it on there when I tell you.
For Larry Crothers, who spent years trolling for salmon, it's never been easy to eke out a living.
It isn't like we just out there every day murdering fish, filling the boat up. It's a hard slug.
Even harder the last several years, as Coos Bay, Oregon has seen salmon stocks go from plentiful to paltry. But no one blames the fishermen for the dwindling salmon stocks. The real culprit is that the habitat where salmon spawn is damaged in some areas. What salmon need to spawn is clean, free-flowing water. But it's estimated that 95% of young salmon are crushed in the turbines of dams. And logging causes tons of soil to erode and clog spawning streams.
How in the hell am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to paint the bottom of my boat?
When fishermen faced off recently against fishery management, they rejected every option under discussion. Everything from a ban on salmon fishing to a very limited season.
Our only choice in the short term is to hurt the fishermen and try to preserve the fish. But that's not a long-term solution. The long-term solution, we've got to build the habitat back.
Some fishermen are re-rigging their boats for Alaskan waters, where salmon are still plentiful. But most can't afford an expensive re-rigging.
I'm rigging up to go bottom fishing for lingcod, whatever I can get.
Somebody, somewhere, has got to be able to help us, and who is it? The old man at sea.
Like every other fisherman, Larry is learning it's each man for himself. Diana Couric, NBC News.
That's Nightly News. I'm Katie Couric. I'll see you tomorrow morning on Today.
To fight the
crimes of the future.
Coming up from your 24-hour news source, captured on tape from high overhead, scenes of death on a southern Iowa farm. They look like dots, but they're more than 80 head of cattle. They are dead. An investigation is underway.
Des Moines police get more support for their action in the Larry Milton case.
The cause of a fire at North High School still under investigation. I'm Therese Thompson. I'll have details.
These stories plus Gary with a great weekend forecast. Rick with sports. All the day's news up next.
Jack and Mary are finally getting around to their first barbecue.
Honey, it's cold.
Just a second, dear.
But honey, it's cold.
Too bad they don't know about all the new burger and chicken sandwiches at Perkins. Each one a tremendous feast. So come on in.
Maybe you should add more lighter fluid?
Besides, it's nice and warm inside.
We can't do it without you. Yes, at Des Moines Chrysler Plymouth, we need you to reach our volume goal to sell 1,200 used cars this year. And to earn your help, we're selling used cars at rock-bottom prices. No other dealer will sell for less. 91 Sundance's 8,400, Acclaims and Spirits 8,900, Dynasty's 9,400 as of April 1st, where 291 units sold. Plus, you'll find 100 more quality trade-ins at rock-bottom prices at Des Moines Chrysler Plymouth on the Merrill Hay Auto Mile. No other dealer will sell for less. It's just that simple.
From Sharp Technology comes a proven winner with the added versatility of zoom copying.
Sharp Technology from Imaging Technologies.
The Sharp SF7370 is based on an sharp design with reliable standard features plus the added advantage of zoom reduction and enlargement. And now you can have the Sharp SF7370 from Imaging Technologies for as low as $36.88 a month. Call Imaging Technologies for complete details.
At Imaging Technologies, we mean business.
Live from WHO TV 13, where the news comes first 24 hours a day. John Bachman, Kim Kerrigan.